How I tricked a bunch of 12-year-olds into building a company. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill. Children here call me Mr. Bill. I'm a parent of 2 children at ZIS. Before I dive into the topic of my speech, I'd like to share with you an inspiring story that happened to me. I was at the local Starbucks in the nearby business park one day, getting breakfast sandwiches for a Halloween meeting at school. I wanted to share the sandwiches with the parents, so I asked the server to cut them in half. The young server, by her looks and her demeanor, looked like an earnest university student from one of the nearby universities. She was in shock and horror. I said, "Yes, please cut it in half." She took her expression of fear and doubt and went behind the counter, took out a long serrated knife, took out one of my sandwiches, and proceeded to do this. I said, No, please stop, put down the knife. I jumped over the Starbucks counter and I intervened. I showed her that the purpose of the serrated knife was to serrate. One had to perform a push and pull motion to slice through the sandwich. I let her try cutting out the rest, but she still squashed down my sandwiches too hard. What can you do, right? This is the high-tech zone. Maybe the robot that was supposed to do this had its day off. Okay, I'm not trying to pick on her, but I do notice that the current generation of young people have very little hands-on skills or real-world experience. It could be partly due to their smartphone use, but I also believe that it's due to the traditional academic training that has made them tilted too far towards testing and academic abilities. Whilst their parents viewed any type of physical labor as low-skilled and backwards. But this view is far from the truth. It's the ones who can combine book smarts and physical reality that those are the ones to change the world. In history, you have people like Leonardo da Vinci, who besides painting the Mona Lisa and designed the first helicopter, was known to be able to jump over a standing man. So the point is, in order to be at our most creative, we must train not just our brains, but use all of our body and senses to do. So at ZIS, when I was given the opportunity to pair up with the design class teacher, I thought this would be a great chance for the students to learn by doing. I told them, not only will you rebuild this workshop yourselves, you will also use it to create products that you will brand, market, and sell at a school event. And you also build a structure that will serve customers an unforgettable experience that day. And you have to do all this in 10 weeks. When I told them this, I knew that they did not have the skills or the ability to complete it. But I also believe that in today's world, one can learn to do anything, anytime, at anywhere, all with the press of a few buttons. All you got to do is watch some YouTube videos. And you know who are the best at watching YouTube videos. And so, but these kids have barely even cleaned their rooms, let alone build a workshop. How do we train up their hands and bodies? Well, with kids, they're also great at not sitting still. They are a billion-year-old biological machine that's designed to move. All you got to do is let them get started. Their bodies will learn to do the rest. And so we started cleaning out the workshop. You, move those things. Yes, you move that out of the room. Now sort them by type. Miscellaneous things over here, wood over here, tools over here. No, don't drag it from the bottom. Move the top boxes first. Use both hands. Bend your knees. That's right. Now stack them. Heavy and firm things on the bottom, lighter things on top. That's right. Once we got them moving, we introduced the building material of plywood. Because if you can piece together pieces of wood, you can build a house. At first, when they started sawing boards, their eyes weren't attached to their arms weren't attached to their blades, everything was misaligned, and the cuts were all slanted. When we introduced the electric drill, children were holding this heavy, pointed, electric, spinny thing like it was some kind of breakfast sandwich. And so I remembered, there's an artist who also has a workshop, and he also makes things out of plywood. Tom Sachs is an American artist that makes everyday objects out of plywood and screws. For example, like the Japanese tea house, and even Hello Kitty dolls, and the entire NASA space program, all with nothing but plywood and screws. And his workshop rule was, do not cam out. Camming out is when you try to drill a screw into wood using an electric drill, but you do not align the drill bit to the head of the screw correctly. And you spin the drill too fast, causing the drill head to grind out and smooth out, making it unretrievable. And there's nothing like the sound of metal grinding on metal that tells you you are doing it wrong. So, because the kids can now feel that this is a heavy, pointy, electric, powerful tool, they went from holding it like this to like this. Naturally and instinctively, pointed and down. Traditionally, when we taught children, it was a lot like how we program computers, line by line, code by code. This linear type of learning produces linear types of thinking, which is great when you have clear questions with clear answers. But the world isn't like that, and our brains aren't connected like that. Recently, artificial intelligence has been getting extremely powerful because they learned to connect information not just in a line, but in a net. And this is exactly how our brains are structured. Not only do we take in new information and connect that into a net, we accompany this information with things that we see, we smell, feel, sense. Our bodies is a complete brain and body neural net. It is a thinking, feeling, and sensing machine. When Albert Einstein thought up of the idea of relativity and time dilation, he imagined himself sitting on a train that was moving so fast it caught up with a beam of light. 2 weeks later, our workshop is set up, and the students made homes for all the tools. But we still had no idea for the business. If they are supposed to have this bodily confidence, then they had to do everything from scratch. Their bodies have to know that they can complete this from foundation to finish. So the students started researching recipes for pizzas. They had to get the right flour, the yeast, the salt, the sugar, the mixing things, the utensils, and they had to select the toppings that they wanted. And every child had to make his or her own pizza. Whilst half the students were doing this, the other half would research on how to make the thing that cooks these things. They went to the back of the school to find pieces of brick, move those bricks out into a clearing, stack them one by one, just like the video said, but then they had to improvise because the bricks weren't the same size as in the videos. And then they helped each other up over the fence, grabbed logs and wood, cut them up into pieces, big logs, medium branches, small twigs, stacked up the firewood, and lit the fire. And man, these pizzas tasted much better than microwave. Because they learned and did everything from the bottom up. That knowledge is not just living in their brains, but baked into their bodies. The proof of this was that the next day in class, they were already debating about how to run this pizza business. Who's going to stand putting the toppings on? Who's going to man the ovens? How many people would need the dough? Who's going to serve the customers? These kids were thinking with their bodies. When we began on this journey, all we had really hoped for was for the children to gain some confidence in tool use. But they surprised us with other parts of their development. Students who would usually shy away from participating in class because English was not their first language stepped up and became responsible and dedicated members of the team. Because they knew what had to be done, they used whatever language and message to get this thing done. They designed, prototyped, drafted, and ordered laser cuts of wooden pizza toppings. Yes, they had the idea of, besides selling real pizzas, that they would sell toy pizzas made up of plywood. And the customers that day will use this as a physical menu to pick their pizza toppings. In the workshop, the students went from being dangerously unpredictable to capably independent, all in a matter of weeks. Not only were they adept at using the tools that they made the homes for, they were also able to modify these tools into surveying equipment and use trigonometry to measure and locate the site for our Pizza Hut. For the kitchen, they laid out all the tables where we would cook and sell, and fabricated kitchen equipment, designed and built serving tables that would be installed into the hillside for a front row al fresco dining experience. And so you see, when we learn by doing, we crisscross different subjects and ideas that we could never think of with just our brains, but only when we marry it with our bodies. When we learn by doing, it allows us to be more creative. It teaches us how to focus and allows us to interact deeply with this world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I thought I tricked a bunch of 12-year-olds into building a company. But really, they tricked me into knowing that the kids are capable of anything when they combine book smarts with physical reality.